Everything's changing, my whole family's in danger, cause they suffer from poverty. I need the biggest house on Lake Shore for my mama to see. Make sure she proud of me, cause Barbara's a part of me, and Marlon's a part of me. My grandpa just passed, I feel lost in all honesty. I just had a kid, the beginning and end. This the cost to live life, just don't live it in sin.
Like, in the neighborhood where I'm from is a thing called being on the porch. Like when you're on a porch, your mother doesn't basically let you off the front or the back from inside the house. Like you can't leave from out of sight basically. But by me being the oldest of 6 kids at the time before my mom had her 7, she allowed me to basically go throughout the neighborhood since I knew a lot of people and she knew a lot of people. So I was able to go from block to block, but she didn't have a leash on me, I would say. So what I did was I just traveled to other family members' houses, which was across the street, and then other friends' houses, which was across another street. So by me doing that, I got to know different people in every block. And then as I got older and older, it's like, okay, well, I know people in these blocks, what about the blocks that I don't know people in? So let's see what's in those. So it became an adventure. Even though it's a small area, it became an adventure of what else is out there in the neighborhood.
So then how did you get to MMU?
MMU?
Mm-hmm.
So I started off trying to get into University of Iowa, and they told me that I couldn't come in because I only had 3 years of a foreign language and I needed 4. So they was trying to get me to do an extra 2 classes in order to get into their school, and I'm like, no, I'm not trying to do that. I'm trying to finish this as soon as possible. So I have a friend, Marissa Clark. She's also in the criminal justice program. She graduated just in May 2, and she told me about that she's in MMU, and she was like, yeah, no, they transfer a lot of our credits from Kirkwood into Mount Mercy. You should give it a try and see what happens. And then I was explaining to her how I'm double majoring in criminal justice and psychology, so I didn't understand how they would go about it that way. Mm-hmm. But then when I called, I met with Dennis, which is the director of the psychology, and I went with Chad, which is the director of the criminal justice, and they were like, you know what, we're going to accept all of your criminal justice and we're going to accept all your psychology. Since you basically almost done with these majors, we just need you to get some other classes in. So I'm like, oh, well, I can finish this in a year? I'm like, yeah, I'm coming to Mount Mercy. Like, that was a no-brainer.
All right. And what drives you? Is there a specific person or people who pushed you to move out of your comfort zone?
I would say when I was younger, the negativity in the neighborhood actually motivated me, because it was I understood that I didn't want to grow up in this type of environment. I didn't want to raise my children in that type of environment. Mm-hmm. So I'm like, man, you got to do something to get out of here. And it's everybody can't play basketball. I used to be short. I'm tall now, but I used to be short. So it was I was smart. So I was like, okay, how about I just go the college route and get myself out of the neighborhood that way? And then now that I'm older, because this is my second time going to college, and I graduated college when I was 19. Now I'm 31, so I started again in 2015. And the motivation for that was my son and my daughter, because I wanted them, by them not being able to witness me go to college or go to high school or none of that stuff, I wanted them to see Dad actually do it. So they were seeing me doing my homework. I was taking them to the libraries, taking them to the school, giving them tours. So they was my motivation, because they was beginning to start school. Like my daughter had just started kindergarten, my son had started preschool. So I was showing them, this is what you have to get ready for, and then as well as what I was learning, I was teaching them as well.
Gotcha. Why did you choose psychology and criminal justice as your majors? And where does your passion come for those 2 subjects?
The same thing. Me growing up in South Side of Chicago, like I said, these days my teachers will ask me a question and say, what do you think about law enforcement? So I tell them it's a loaded question, and they be like, what do you mean? I'm like, I can tell you 2 different answers. I can tell you the answer of what I think of law enforcement from what I've experienced growing up, or I can tell you from going to school. So I wanted to know when I was younger, I never understood it like that. Cause my daddy was incarcerated, and when the police came and got him, I didn't understand it. Wait, who is these people? And where they taking my daddy at? So me being so young, I didn't understand it. So then when people was telling me, oh yeah, it's the law, I'm like, the law? What is that? So that intrigued me at a young age to try to figure out and understand what is the law. So I started researching the law since I was a little kid, and that intrigued my the criminal justice path. With psychology, when I was younger, it's people would what you call lie. And it's they could look you straight in your eye and tell you something that wait, why would they say that if they not? And then I ended up bumping into the word psychology and understood that it was talking about like the mind. So I'm like, wow, people keep saying that I'm smart, but your mind is inside your brain somewhere. So if I understood psychology, maybe I could understand myself more. So I wanted to go the psychology route.
Gotcha. Okay. And what systems did Mount Mercy have in place that helped you achieve your goals? Or what could Mount Mercy do better?
I have to thank the one and only, I call him the guru of writing, being in the A Center. Like when I say I'm not like going through Kirkwood and going through college the first time, I never had anybody help me with my writing, like because it was like I think I kind of got this, and I was doing so well. But then when the teacher was saying like, we want you to write on a college level, we want you to get deep, we want you to go into depth and details, like because the more you go in depth into the field, you have to understand the terminology. So I'm like, okay. They're like, also you got to understand how to write it. I'm like, okay. So they told me to go to the A Center, and I had met Ben for the first time. And like with the first paper, he was like, wow, I'm amazed at how you writing this. Like it's not that many mistakes. He like, but it's minor things. And then I was explaining to him why those minor things were, because in grammar they tell us we can't write in run-on sentences, but the law is written in run-on sentences. So I'm telling him like I have to continue myself to write like that in order for me to understand the law. Because if I change the way that I write my grammar, then I start interpreting the law different, and I don't want to do that. Like, so he understood that. So the A Center, Ben, I say 2 thumbs up. Like at 3, I would give him 3 thumbs up. What else? I would say the teachers, like a lot of the teachers, like they always had their door open. It wasn't a closed door policy. It was always, Dennis was always there, Chad was always there, Dr. Sullivan was always there, Dr. Lee was always there when she became my teacher, Deb was always there. So basically like all my teachers was always there, and whenever I needed a helping hand, they can lead me in the right direction. So that's what I liked about Mount Mercy as well.
How did it feel when you received the Psychology Student Award? And what was going through your head the night of the award ceremony?
So the night of the award ceremony, I had already knew it, but I had like, the teachers was kind of like hinting at it, and they was laughing and everything, and I was like, wait, what is they laughing at? And then Dennis had told me, like, he like, have you opened your email yet? I'm like, no, because I was still working on my final paper. He's like, well, I got some good news for you. I'm like, what's the good news? Like, what is it? Like, I'm trying to hurry go finish this paper. Like, you gonna tell me, or what? I got to open the email. And he was like, you was one of the top students that we chose, like, for the psychology award. I'm like, what? And then he started explaining to me, like, you got to understand that, like, you wasn't a regular student where you just basically did your psychology work and then that was just it. He was like, you literally read and you asked the hard questions that, you was finding holes in psychology research that's been going on for years. So he was basically trying to push me to go get my PhD in psychology. And I was telling him, like, by me having a love for the criminal justice psychology, I have to hold it off for now. But when I received the award, it was like, wow, like, maybe I ain't crazy. Like, because a lot of the theories that you would think, if people in your, like, say the neighborhood I grew up in, I would say something to them, they wouldn't understand it. Like, wait, that's crazy. And it's like, wait, huh? But I have a psychology book that literally states this in the book, like in the terminology and the whole theory that's been going on for 30 plus years. Like, but it's more of what have you been introduced to. So it's like by the people that I grew up with never been introduced to that psychology information, and me going to school for it, it was like, oh yeah, I felt good knowing that, man, I ain't crazy. And there's a lot more to do with the mind, and a lot more to do with psychology, and a lot to understand that theories are being built upon. Like, so we still in the psychology field building upon old theories. We scrapping some of the old theories, but some of the theories we keeping around and we building upon them. So I felt amazed that night receiving that award, because it was like, wow, your hard work is paying off.
If you could redo your Mount Mercy experience, what, if anything, would you change?
If I could redo it, I'll probably start there. That's probably what I would do, because Mount Mercy has I forgot the name of the scholarship, but the first generation person going to college, like they basically pay for your 4 years. I would have started at Mount Mercy, but I wasn't coming out of high school, so I wouldn't have been able to through that, but if I could, I would want to start that for my first 4 years, because when I came into Mount Mercy, I came into Mount Mercy the spring of 2018. So the fall semester had already started. So a lot of the kids and a lot of the other students, they had already formed their groups by then. So with me coming in the spring, it was hard for me to integrate into a group, and it was like, man, well, I just have to just sit on the outskirts of a lot of groups and just have friends from like that. But if I could change anything, I would rather start it that, so that way I could have had a bigger like network of friends from Mount Mercy.
What are you doing now, just shortly after commencement, and what are your goals for the future?
Now I'm in a master's program for criminal justice. I'm currently working part-time, and I'm currently looking for a publisher for my first written book.
Well, what's your book about?
My book it's called The Mercy Papers.
The Mercy Papers? All right.
So basically it has to do with my mercy.
Gotcha. All right. And do you have any advice for students that might be in a similar situation to yours growing up?
I'll take 10 years to tell you all this stuff. Because basically like what I'm doing, like the business that I'm creating, like with this logo, is basically a lot of kids are in bad neighborhoods and they don't have the opportunities to make it out. So it's like I'm trying to explain to them what I did so they can make it out of those situations. Because what I did was like I stayed in the library. And like I said, like you seeing the different blocks in the neighborhood, you expand your brain. Like research shows that they did research with rats to where the rat just could only just spin on the wheel, but then they put different things in a different rat like environment, and then when they weighed the brain at the end of the day, the rat that had a lot of different environments that it had experienced, brain weighed more. It had more gray matter, which is what you need to think. So I would basically like tell the kids like never give up. Like just keep pushing through. Like and that's what I tell people. Like basically like prosper through the adversity. Like every day is not gonna be a good day, but you can make it a good day. So it's like if you actually have that mindset and that focus on your goal, because if you just reading it to read it, when it comes down to you applying it or interpreting it, you're not gonna understand it because you're just reading it. You can read the words, but are you understanding what the words are saying and what the research is saying?
And you mentioned your logo. Could you talk a little bit about that?
It's basically a logo of my face with no expression, basically. Like, because when a person has expressions, like you usually tell if they happy, you can tell if they sad. But when a person has no expressions, it's like mysterious in a way. It's like you don't know. So the logo stands for Duffle LO, which is basically like don't underestimate family, friends, lovers, enemies, look objectively. And the reason why I said that is because we know, and from the Bible, we know the family Cain killed his brother Abel. And then, you know, a lot of friends, they end up doing stuff behind friends' backstabbing. And then a lot of lovers turn on each other. And then already your enemies are already trying to get you anyway. So it's like I just put it all together and said don't underestimate them, just look objectively. There's no sense of you judging them because this is a lover today, tomorrow they may be an enemy. There's no sense of judging your enemy today when tomorrow they may be a friend. So it's like I just look at everybody, every day I look at them different because I want people to know that we shouldn't judge each other. And when people understand that you're not judging a person, you can actually make that person have a better day by you putting positivity into their life rather than negativity, which is enough like negativity going on in the world for everybody. So it's like somebody needs to try to come and put some positivity into the world.
And then, do you have anything to add that I might have missed, or anything you feel is important for people to know about you or your journey?
I would say Chicago itself is not a bad place. It's just a lot of people in bad situations that's making their environment bad. So it's not the people, it's their situations and their environment. And me understanding like epigenetics, your genetics is controlled by your environment. So some people that's growing up in a bad environment, they're not going to thrive in that environment. But if they switch to a different environment, they can possibly thrive in that environment. So that's what I would like a lot of people to understand, that it's not the city itself, it's not the people itself, it's a lot of different situations that's compounded and confounded. Like it's a lot of things, it's not just one thing. And me making it out of that, I understand that it can be done. I'm not the first person to make it out. I'm not the second person to make it out. There's been people making it out of Chicago, going through so much stuff. Since Chicago probably was incepted, so it's just like now there's a spotlight on Chicago where people is looking at it and they looking at how the children are so violent. Now, I understand that me being younger, that same thing was going on. Like the children was always violent like that. Like, but they looked at it in a negative way because they said that it's a spotlight on the killing. When there's killing going around everywhere, like no matter what the age is. So it's like, it's just spotlighted in that city, and I don't want people to think that Chicago is a negative place because it really is a beautiful city if you get to see it. But a lot of people just don't understand that you judge people before you get to know them. And when a person knows that you're judging them, they act accordingly. That's like labeling theory. When you label somebody a certain way and you start to act that way towards them, they start to act the way that you want them to act. So it's like you confirm yourself, like confirmation bias, like you confirm that, oh yeah, I knew that they acted like that. But in reality, it's the way that you were acting to them, and they're responding in that way in which you want them to respond. So like it's very complicated and complex, but me understanding, like I said, like me not looking down on people or me trying to help people, I'll be able to navigate through Chicago in the bad neighborhoods, the good neighborhoods, downtown, everywhere, peacefully, because people understand when I come up to them, I'm genuinely coming up to them as a person and talking to them, not talking at them or talking down to them. I'm explaining things to them that they may not know. So I'm bringing knowledge to them, I'm bringing wisdom to them, and I'm bringing like, I'm telling them like, look, you can prosper through this. I was in the same situation, and now I live somewhere else. So you can always find your route, and then you can move somewhere else. So it's like, I just want people to understand that. And that a little while.
All right. Well, thank you very, very much for being with me. Do you mind if I get a quick picture then?
Sure.
All right. Yeah, keep recording that.